Ace and Ace Assassin reached a small adjacent area to the main floor. Having just heard the explosion as well as a few feminine screams, they stopped behind a blind corner, to which Savvy took a cautious peek. "Seems like they're keeping them busy," the tomboy stated, keeping an eye on their six. "Just a few of them, I bet. They have a few numbers on their side," Ace clarified, shifting his gaze from left to right. Alongside some goons that are still unconscious, he couldn't still see any other names of the Full House. Chances are they may be heading out to investigate the noise, which could put them in line of sight for Deuce and Bomber. And if they dodge, they will move and outnumber them. Ace Assassin flinched, as something sounded like that was being broken in the direction that came from. "Not that we could stick around here, either to tick off your sister somewhere behind us." She then looked back at Ace. "So then when do we locate the rest? What do you all have in mind?" "We're still going to subdue them so we can discuss everything. If I knew they'd go quietly, I'd have to pick a different plan, though we will have to speed things up a bit before they get a chance to organize." Ace then gave a short pause as he fiddled with his comms. "Deuce, do you see any card counter anywhere?" Deuce then scanned the floor, not seeing the person of interest, but then spotted 11, making a passing glances on whatever noises were occurring outside. "Just a bunch of passed out morons and one of our sisters. I can sure pass some gas on at her if you want." "Don't. Me and Ace Assassin and Mirage will work to keep them divided. Just locate card counter and let me know ASAP." "Got it," the 7-year-old muttered, now focused on her attention to the upper decks. The Rocketeer couldn't see much from her current position, which put her in a bind. She didn't want to risk being spotted and preferred to stick supporting a role, which was breaking up fights and causing a distraction. But Deuce recognized that she needed to locate her prodigy of a sister before she could think of any way to ruin her plans. Deciding it was worth the risk, Deuce pocketed her mask, dropped down to the highest catwalk. "Now, where, oh where can my old roommate be?" she muttered in a sing-song tone. As Deuce walked around on her level, she failed to notice Queen of Diamonds, who was stomping on the floor on another catwalk, a couple of levels below. The irate 6-year-old huffed as puffed, and she scanned out the roof for whatever Rocketeer may be hiding. Growing more impatient by the second, out of boredom, Queen looked down to see if there was anything going on, and by chance she happened to spot Ace Assassin trying to stay hidden amongst the machinery. They weren't too far from where the strong suit was located. A malicious grin formed on Queen's face. Deuce would have to wait, cause there were 2 targets that were just being ambushed. Touching her receiver, "Hey, strong suit, you got some friends near you?" With our resident Joker, she opted to remain close to her Jack-in-the-Box due to Ace and Deuce's presence. For one, she wasn't looking forward to smelling like a skunk that combined with its stench of a landfill. And for another, Joker hated to admit it, but she wouldn't fare well against Ace or whoever he was with. And she wasn't that well suited to straight up-and-hand combat. Not only that, Ace knew about every trick that she could throw at him, despite being random in her attacks. But what was the biggest unknown factor, so the comedian, was exactly why did Ace bring with him? If it was Jack, which would be very likely, then CC would have said so. Not only that, Nightclub had suddenly ended her call, which sounded like there would be a fight going on outside. But there was a good possibility that it might have been the grunts and musicians incapacitated right before the initial fighting. Not really something worth breaking a nail over. Poking out her hidden spot, Joker saw 11 was within earshot that she had tried to finish and fix her ruined sash. A sudden tap to her leg made her jump slightly. Turning around, the comedian breathed a heavy sigh that was only the royal flush. "You have seen Ace anywhere?" the plumber asked as she started picking up her nose. "I looked all around the back storage room and I didn't see anything. Well, except for High Card, but you best to stay away from her." "What's that?" "Apparently someone just shot her in the arm." Flush squinted as she stuck her finger deeper. Closing her eyes, she picked out a large booger. "She'll live, but she's dead set finding the guy who did it." Just as she opened her mouth to consume her snack, Joker smacked it out of her hand. Ew, gross! We told you to stop doing that! Flush then glared at her older sister. Well, I didn't get to eat anything since we left the base, and these guys, she gestures to some of the grunts, lying on the floor, ransacked all the vending machines. Hey, Strong Suit, you got some friends near you? Both girls heard Queen speak in the comms. Well, guess that answers that. Joker smiled as she elbowed her prized weapon. It folded itself down to a small hand box before she picked it up. Want to give a Strong Suit a hand? Flush then patted the back of her head with the pipe wrench to her head. Oh yeah, I was really... Hello, ladies, came a calm, masculine, teasing tone. Both girls turned to the left to see a boy roughly Luann's age, maybe lower, dressed in black and green tux, with a mask and a fedora to match. Ooh, a musician! Flush cheered excitedly. Joker narrowed her eyes. Wait a second. Why would it be a magician be out of the middle of all of this? Second, are you even a real magician? She folded her arms as she gave the boy a quizzical look. Most refer to me as one, but you may refer to me as... The boy who covered the lower part of his face with his cape. Mirage, master. Joker gave a half-idled stare. That sounds so... Cool! Royal Flush interrupted. Did you guys say magician? Eleven asked in glee as she came running over. Well, it seems like I have quite the audience. I suppose that the show is in order. Mirage grinned, a deck of cards flowing with his cuffs and into his hands. Now Joker performed magic tricks to herself for little kids' birthday parties, and while there was an unspoken rule that magicians never revealed their secrets, she could tell this guy was being corny as well. Card tricks? Really? She groaned in awkwardly. Mirage closed the deck between her hands before opening them and revealing the empty palms. Both Flush and 11 were amazed in spite of Joker not being impressed. Nothing up my sleeves, as you could see, he spoke, tugging the cuffs down to the tux slightly. Casually walking over, he stopped in front of the Joker, who raised a brow in confusion before he reached down behind her and then pulled out the missing deck. Then Mirage shuffled the deck into a few times before taking off his fedora. Joker stifled a laugh at the sight of his curly hair, growing a little curious as to where this was going. Mirage put the deck into the hat, then turning onwards towards the girls, a flock of doves flew out into the air. Both Flush and 11 became starry-eyed at the spectacle, which Joker gave a little shrug. Okay, I guess that's a little impressive. While both teams were in the midst of sorting things out and fighting amongst each other, all the guards were beginning to wake up and were confused as to what was going on. However, recognizing that Willie was nowhere to be found and out of abundance of heroes, anyone who had awoken decided that it was best to leave than risk getting jailed. Those who weren't currently distracted took notice, but did nothing to stop them. After all, they were just pathetic mooks who weren't worth spending energy on. It wouldn't be long until the factory was completely empty. Aside from the two groups seeking out to dominate each other, and out of the midst of the chaos, look out! Ace's assassin quickly pushed Ace forward as a hail of shards came flying down at them. The two looked over as more rained down from above. The duo felt some stinged projectiles graze through their costumes as the skin underneath. They sought the immediate shelter under a conveyor belt close to the main floor, panting her breath as adrenaline started to wane down. You guys all right? Ace asked to his partner, inspecting himself. A few shards managed to nick him in a couple of places where fresh blood leaked out, but otherwise he appeared okay. Yeah, Ace Assassin replied with a shaky tone. Taking a moment to remove her mask, there was a shard embedded in the spot where her forehead sat. While Sharpshooter was mostly unarmed outside a few scratches, that piece of diamond were mere centimeters from piercing her skull. The tomboy pulled the shard out with her mask before setting it back on her face. What the heck was this? Ace then glanced at the object, knew exactly who made those, but before he could voice his thoughts, the belt was suddenly ripped off at their position, making a horrible bending noise as the metal was torn from its joints. The two teens screamed in surprise before Strong Suit stared at them with a malicious grin. Here's Strong Suit! Being the first to recover, Ace Assassin immediately drew her pistols, opened fire directly at the teen's chest. To her surprise, Although the bullets buried themselves into her skin, Strong-Su didn't appear to be hurt by what would normally be a killing blow. Glaring at the sharpshooter, Strong-Su grabbed the girl by her arms, flung it out of the hole. Ace watched his partner fly out straight before glaring at Suit, who returned to look and tired, reaching for him. He slid under her grasp before grabbing the outstretched arm and yanking her down to the floor. As Strong-Su landed on her face, Savvy took the chance to escape her, knowing very well that it would be very hard to match her hand to hand. As he sprawled out from under the belt, the 11-year-old gave a surprised yelp as he felt his hand grab his leg. "You're not getting away that easily, Stinkin'." The boy's glare waved a little, as he noticed Lynn's eyes were looking similar to Lori's, were the only yellowish tint that was more visible. "Try me," was his response as he kicked her in the face. The 13-year-old screamed a bit as she held her nose with both hands, giving Ace seconds and he needed to run. Strong-Su growled loudly as she crawled from under her belt and gave the chase. Ace Assassin cried out as she rebounded a support beam and slid onto the floor, her pistol sliding in next to her seconds later. She arched her back upwards as she brought her hands to the sore spot, giving a loud hiss of pain that coursed through her body. "Dang it, forgot those sissy rounds that don't work on her." Ace Assassin then heard a familiar sound of a small object cutting through her hair at subsonic speeds. Her eyes widened as more of those diamond shards were flying towards her, and immediately rolled along the ground to dodge the attack. There was a brief pause in the assault as Ace Assassin got to her feet, which granted her enough time to track where the shots had came from. Spotting a small silhouette into one of the catwalks above her, the tomboy drew out her second pistol, dumped out both migraines at that spot. Mirage's performance was still interrupted by the hail of gunfire, to which everyone turned to the noise and spotted Ace Assassin shooting at that particular spot. Looking up, Joker caught the distant silhouette of a crown. A gasp escaping her own, realizing that Queen was in danger. Furrowing her brows, Joker reached for her prized weapon, only to discover that the emptiness that sat in its usual place. "What the?" She dug into her pocket. "Where's my—" Joker paused when she pulled out a few low-end playing cards. Her eyes widened as she remembered Mirage had taken his deck from her. Joker's face formed a red hue as steam came to her ears. "You little thief!" she shouted, yelled in confusion to the other girls. "Give me back my Jack-in-the-Box." Mirage gave a small, long pause, trying to think of something. "I plead the fifth?" He then smiled sheepishly. Joker wasn't in any mood for playing around, for she reaches behind her back and pulled out a mallet roughly the size of her entire body. Mirage's pupils shrank as sweat began to run down his forehead. "Wait, I have one last trick to show you." "Like what?" Joker fumed, now standing in front of them, holding a mallet above her head. Mirage didn't speak, but did a few movements before taking off his hat. He then pointed the bottom of the hat towards the girls before Joker was thrown backwards into some kind of seeds, blasted out of the headwear like water on a high-pressure hose. The other two girls barely got to scream out before they were practically buried. Flush lifted her head out of the pile first, spitting out a few seeds. She chewed the last one that stuck between her teeth, savoring the taste. "Is this bird food?" Joker and 11 burst up out of the pile, giving murderous glares at the redhead. "Yep," Mirage looked at this. "Just give it a sec." The girls raised an eyebrow for a statement, before looking up to see multiple shadows obscured over the light from above the ceiling. The doves that Mirage set free earlier had been roosting upon the upper levels of the building. Having smelled the birdseed, they immediately started diving towards the heroines. All three of them let out another scream as they struggled to get out of the pile, but it was too late. They were completely surrounded by the flock as they made feeble attempts to shoo the birds away. "I can't see anything!" Flesh cried. "Ow, ow, make it stop!" 11 shrieked. Mirage then began to whistle a tune as he shoved his hands into his pocket, turning to leave the girls to their fate. "You!" He paused mid-step, giving a little slide glance backwards. Joker managed to free herself from the swarm of various cuts, rearranging her costume and face. Mirage gave a nervous grin before taking off the devil like who was after him. Then again, have you ever seen Luann whenever she was this pissed? Get back here! Joker yelled, now brandishing her mallet twice her size as she chased after her prey. Back with Ace Assassin, she watched a couple of bullets miss by impacting the roof beams and the floor on the catwalk, but the rest that hit her made their mark. Or so she thought. A light flash occurred as if some of the bullets were deflected off the pink surface. Ace Assassin grew confused for a moment before she heard a young feminine voice yelling, "Why, you little..." The figure jumped off the catwalk, revealing the Queen of Diamonds encircled in a bubble. The little girl herself, murderous intent etched on her face. No doubt it was one of her holes that her dress was received from the walls of bullets that sent her away. Ace Assassin jumped out to the side as Queen crashed into her former position, sizable hole forming against the ground. "You're going to pay for ruining my gown!" the Queen shouted at Ace Assassin as she prepared more shards. "You're gonna have to pay for nearly killing me," the tomboy retorted. Believing that the regular bullets would have little effect, she holstered the Glocks while exchanging them for much larger Desert Eagles. "And you're going to pay for shooting me," a mature voice cut in behind the sharpshooter. As Ace Assassin turned, fist collided with her cheek, sending her tumbling back as she fell to the ground. Gritting her teeth, Ace Assassin wasn't too surprised to see High Card with her fists ready. Her bleeding arm was hastily wrapped in gauze, which now practically red since the wound hadn't fully healed. As the chaos continued down below, Deuce continued her search for Card Counter as she went down a few levels to get a better view of everything that was going on. It was so strange, yet kind of sad. She spotted Mirage keeping three of the girls distracted with a couple of tricks, which may have explained the birds that she saw. Near the massive loading door, Deuce caught a glimpse of Wrangler chasing 8 of spades around with her own shovel. Suddenly, sparks started shooting from around Deuce, making her flinch and nearly fall to the floor. Looking down, she saw Ace Assassin shooting in a certain spot close to where she was. It was then Deuce finally noticed Queen of Diamonds, who projected a barrier around herself once that pageant winner realized that who she was shooting at. "Why, you little..." Deuce heard her shout before she jumped down. The 7-year-old watched her go, nearly landed on the sharpshooter, who immediately pulled out the different set of pistols. Then to her shock, Deuce watched as High Card came from behind and sucker punched her. Narrowing her eyes as the 7-year-old knew it wasn't going to be a fair fight. The blonde started gritting her teeth. Seconds later, she caught a glimpse of Strawn's suit, chasing her after her little brother. The athletic heroine was now throwing random objects at Ace, who was constantly bobbed and weaved to avoid getting hit. "Seems like I need to even score." Deuce then gripped her launcher tight as she lined up the shot. She only had 2 rockets left in her tube, but she figured that just one would be enough. Hopefully her teammates won't be mind being gassed. Deuce froze when she heard that sound. It was something along that pushed behind her neck. "Drop the launcher, Deuce," a familiar voice, nerdy voice wisp ordered. The 7-year-old glared into space as she refused to comply, which led to another poke, this time to the base of her skull. "I said drop it!" Deuce gave a frustrated sigh as she let her launcher fell to the floor. After High Card Counter kicked it out of reach, the Rocketeer kept it to her hands raised and hoping that her sister didn't get to decide just to shoot her, cause then and there, she turned around. Deuce saw Card Counter had some sort of blaster in one hand, then a tablet on the other. Judging by the amount of electricity that was charged in that container center, Deuce had to guess it was her Tesla gun. "Nice to see you, sister," the blonde spat with venom in her voice. "Well, I could say the same for you, traitor," Card Counter returned the statement. Deuce gave a low chuckle. "It's funny how you call me traitor when you're the really ones who decided to try and kill our brother. And for what? Over a bad streak?" Card Counter gave a light sigh. "Still naive you are, Deuce. We didn't have a choice. We were willing to let Lincoln go quietly, but deciding fighting would have been a better option. Obviously because he was following the principles all of us agreed to. What you guys did was basically spit on him and tell Lincoln that you guys were going to do your things your way, not caring if this was right or wrong, Deuce retorted. And he didn't understood those principles we had set up aren't working. Why do you think we decided to teach Card Shark a lesson he wouldn't forget? Even tonight we would have freed Wildcard Willie's shenanigans, but you dunderheads ruined that, the 4-year-old countered. And who said it's our job to kill people? I can't even... Deuce bit her lip, as hot tears appeared at the corner of her eyes. Even if it was our job, I couldn't do it. We're supposed to help others by showing that we can keep them safe, not getting rid of anyone who's bad. And yet, there's some masked villains who have committed hideous acts on innocent. Card counter lowered her lip a bit. Just facts here, Deuce. Things need to change. All of us grew up mentally at an exponential rate after the passing of our parents. Sad as it may be, but this is what we must do. Deuce then stared at the floor with a depressed look. Don't you believe our parental units would have been approve of what we're trying to do? One of Deuce's eyes twitched, and his flash of heat over anger came her. No. She gave a dark look at the short brunette. I'm pretty sure they would say you guys are grounded until you're nearly 18 for killing Lincoln nearly. Card counter nearly narrowed her eyes, and her brows knitted to a V shape. I'm beginning to wish you were still a clueless infant. If you didn't have that stupid thing, Deuce gestured the grin, mustering up a small laugh, pointed at me, and you really wish I was. No sooner than she had finished saying that, all the windows of the factory shattered as an extremely loud guitar riff cut off the building like a hot knife through butter. Deuce and Card Counter were nearly floored once the wave had hit them. With one final glance that would show everyone else that had to cover their ears or risk permanent hearing damage, the entire factory shook from the musical assault. Deuce had found it difficult to regain her senses as she steadied herself while trying to block out the noise. Deuce had eyed her sister, who was trying to retrieve her dropped weapon. Given a low growl, the Rocketeer did her best to block out the noise as she charged at the prodigy. Card Counter only had a few seconds to meet the eyes of an angry 7-year-old before Deuce crashed into her. Mad Bomber had gave a light snore as he rested on his stomach. Having fallen to a board-induced sleep after a while, he ruined 11 of Heart's sash for all the power he had at his fingertips. Being the team's demo man and served his disadvantages, he couldn't use his explosives often due to fear of friendly fire. He might damage the factory too much, while his crowd control abilities may be second to none. Ace didn't want his other sisters to be maimed for life. Bomber had to admit, the guy had a heart of spite of what they wanted to do to him, and with little to do outside of keeping track of potential targets, the boy simply got too comfortable and passed out. Unknown to most people, the Demolished was a heavy sleeper. Not even the gunshots of Ace Assassin was putting him out cold to wake him up. However, that didn't mean he was susceptible to one-woman rock concert, waking up to the entire town. Bomber screamed himself awake as he heard a loud guitar riff being played just below him. His glasses cracked from the constant vibrations that rocked to his core, not even registering the distant sound of glass shattering. Pressing his fingers against to his ears, he stumbled over to the roof's edge to find out who had the indecency to rouse him from his sleep. The rainer from the bomber's eyes grew louder as once he peeked over the edge. Finding a displeasing sight, Nightclub managed to get her guitar, despite of Jack's attempts to stop her, and was venting her frustration at anything within earshot. The demo saw his teammates withering in pain, bearing the brunt of it, along with Eight Spades looking like he was about to keep her head from exploding. Given an irritated growl, Mad Bomber pulled out his launcher, aimed it directly at Nightclub's axe. Ace won't like hearing about his sister losing a hand or arm, but it wouldn't matter if something doesn't shut her up. Unfortunately, the demo had no clue of what the sound waves were doing to his equipment. No sooner he helped pull the trigger, the bomber left that to the barrel exploding right in front of him. Bomber was thrown backwards by the explosion, and with suit covering his front, and his hair practically alight. Well, that was just dandy, the boy grumbled to himself. 8 of Spades stumbled over to her roommate. Ringing in her ears becoming louder from the second. The gravedigger started to feel some sort of liquid forming in her ears, not sure if it was water or worse, blood. "Nightclub!" H shouted when her voice came to her sister's side. Unfortunately, the teen didn't seem to hear her, nor she was aware of immediate surroundings. Taking a deep breath. "Nightclub!" Again, her voice was drowned out by her music. Growling to herself, A took the risk and unplugged her ears, marching right up to the rocker and shoving her head to the ground. "Stop playing your stupid music!" H shouted, before going into a small coughing fit. Nearly being silent all the time, her voice box can be strained easily if she raises her voice too much. "Geez, sis, what's the deal?" Nightclub retorted, glaring daggers at the young girl. She lost her irritation upon noticing a few spots of blood in Eight's fingers. "You okay, bruh?" "I'm fine," Eight strained, as she coughed a little more, her voice raspy and dry. Nightclub pulled the girl's hood back to her to check for injuries, finding out that there were no traces of damage on her face, outside from the bruise forming on her left cheek. However, Night spotted a trail of blood on both sides of Eight's neck, which started to worry her. Moving a few strands of hair, guilt started to pool in the musician's gut as she was met with a little sight of blood flowing out of Night Eight's earhole. "Oh, I'm so sorry, dude," Nightclub spoke sincerely. "I didn't think it was that loud." "I can't really hear you too well, but forget all of us that were resistant to extremely loud noises." Eight spoke through her gritted teeth. She then turned her attention to the two boys. "What about them?" Nightclub just gave a side glance before giving a warm smile to her sister. "Don't worry, sis." She patted Eight's shoulder. "You just wait here and chill for a while. I'll take care of this." Jack and Wrangler rubbed their sore ears, trying to dispel of the constant rain that was as well as fighting back the migraine. Jack's glasses were completely broken off from the sound waves, leaving him incredibly nearsighted. "I can hardly see a darn thing," Wrangler shouted, louder than patting the sides of his head, as if something was stuck in his ear. "I can hardly see anything," Jack replied, squinting his beady eyes, until he saw a tall blurry figure approaching. "That you, Mirage?" "I don't know who Mirage is," Nightclub spoke, planting the base of her instrument to the ground. "But if you dudes want to mosh pit..." She then cracked her knuckles, her lips curling into a wide grin as her brows knitted together. "You're going to get one." Wrangler raised a brow. "I don't know what you said, but I'm gonna assume it wasn't anything good." Jack gave an audible gulp, raising his hands above his head in defense. "Not the face!" No sooner did the music stop blaring, all the combatants resumed fighting once more. Ace was doing his best to evade Strongsuit, who was now throwing random junk at him. In hopes of impaling him to a wall, Ace Assassin was forced to deal with 3-1 fight against Queen of Diamonds, High Card, and 11 of Hearts, who joined once the music stopped. Mirage was still being pursued by an angry Joker, and finally Deuce and Card Counter were exchanging blows on the upper levels of the building. Obviously to what was happening off by a loading bay, Bomber wiped some of the soot off his face before glancing down at all the battles below him. "Man, everyone's got to have fun besides me. Maybe I should have picked a different job." "Is everyone okay?" Ace's frantic voice rang for the comms. The red-haired raised a brow before moving to the roof to find another skylight. "Rather busy here, ugh," Ace Assassin replied, apparently taking another hint from someone. "Dude, your sister, you can't take a joke." Mirage came up to her next, fear evented from his tone. "I'll show you who's the real joke around here," Joker yelled loudly from behind him. "Wrangler, Jack, Deuce." Bomber heard Ace giving a small shriek before nothing but static echoed over through the mic. There wasn't any response from the aforementioned heroes. The redhead figured that they must have had their hands full too. Once he found an opening to the roof, the first thing he saw was Deuce and Card Counter rolling down a few levels below the dust cloud, obscuring in their brawl. Growing frustrated at the whole situation, the demo took his bag off and started poking around the inside of it. "Come on, there's gotta be something I can use in here." Feeling a metallic surface, his fingers curled around before pulling it out. It was nearly a flat disc with red and white coloring on the surface. Bomber recognized it was one of his flash mines. He chose the color reminded him of fireworks of a certain holiday. Originally, Bomber had planned to make run-out-of-the-mill flashbangs, but just found out the mines packed more explosive charges and had twice the brightness. I think I just know where to put this. The boy grinned, eyeing at one of the fights happening below. Ace Assassin growled through her teeth as earshot shot around her at the first incoming shards. Queen flew at her, forcing the projectiles to hit everywhere before they intended the target. She was forced to her direct attention upwards towards 11 of hearts, who swooped down another kick. The sharpshooter only sent a few bullets to her way before being forced to dodge high card as the team came at her with her metal staff. Backing away, Ace Assassin shot at high card's feet to keep her from a distance, only to realize that she was sandwiched between both the teen and Queen on the opposite sides. Covered in bruises and cuts on various parts of her body, Ace Assassin's breaths were becoming more labored as each minute passed. Under normal circumstances, the tomboy could have handled herself against multiple enemies. The Full House was far more competent and skilled than anything she laced before. The short repetitive she had been nightclub was venting about a little to herself to regain some stamina. It was only a matter of time before her reflexes showed up again at the point that she had been an easy target. Ace Assassin then wiped her head to the noise, seeing an odd-colored mine on the ground a few feet behind her. Ace Assassin, cover your eyes, Bomber's voice warned. Heeding his advice, the tomboy shielded her vision right before a loud popping sound was registered to her ears. Ace Assassin then saw a brief flash while the ringing persisted, slowly dying as mere seconds passed. Uncovering her eyes, the 11-year-old was rather pleased to see High Card, Queen of Diamonds, and 11 of Hearts rubbing their eyes intensely as they tried to correct their vision. 11, who was swinging back around when the flash occurred, evaded away and tended off course until clang. She slammed her face first into a large boiler when her body went limp and her momentum caused her to swing backwards before it came undone, the teen falling unceremoniously to the ground. Ooh, Assassin winced. Well, that's one down. Eyeing the other two members, Ace Assassin then reached into her pockets, pulling out the two smoke bombs. After making sure no friendlies were in sight, a mischievous grin took a shape on her face. Time for the other two. Highcard groaned in confusion as the blurriness of her vision started to fade. What the heck is that? My guess is the same to yours, sister, Queen replied, rubbing her eyes before blinking a few times. When she could see more than just a few feet, the 6-year-old grew even more confused at the forming smoke cloud. What is she up to? Involved by the smoke, Ace Assassin twitched her very pistols back to the standard Glocks, making sure they were fully loaded. Closing her eyes and taking a deep breath, she then began to move in the way that was akin to the ballerina. Even twirling at the tips of her toes was extremely fast-paced. Once the tomboy felt that she reached a high speed, she extended her guns outwards and began unleashing hail of bullets in all directions. To say the Full House members were unprepared was an understatement. High Card stumbled around random directions, only to be grazed by the best to catch a bullet at the worst everywhere she ran to. She managed to find cover while taking a few hits, while setting that she couldn't be moved. Queen of Diamonds instinctively threw up a shield to defend herself, but due to the hastiness of the action being under pressure, she couldn't help but mind her as her own quick strong as it would have been given. Bits and pieces of her shoulder broke off under the storm of bullets. She soon ran and pierced her skin at the shoulder, while the other two then broke her crown in half. With the source of keeping her powers under control and broken, Queen cried in desperation before expelling her shield in the hail of shards of every inch away. Most of the pieces heading off for Ace Assassins managed to get deflated, but the tomboy was forced to cut off her attack when one shard jammed her to her skin, then another at the back of the shards slashed the steel into the bag, making him yelp in surprise as a few mines fell to the ground. Oh, that's not good. The mines then bounced off in various directions surfaces. As Bomber prayed that none of them would explode. One of them dropped next to where the forklift earlier crashed into compression chamber, with the other two landing nearly cutting the material along with the little line production machineries respectively. Bomber gave a huge sigh of relief when nothing happened, but unbeknownst to him or anyone else, the impact from the fall caused the mine timers to activate. If ones were close enough, they could hear a fainting, ticking sound. Ace dodged another punch thrown by Strong Suit before aiming to another cheek. The athlete grunted a bit before delivering a hard punch to Ace's mouth. Sending him flying towards a wall, the white-haired hero reacted quickly by planting his feet against it before sliding down to the floor. He kept a hard hand in balance as he took labored breaths. "Glad you finally decided to stand and fight, Ace. I was getting real tired of chasing your cowardly butt all night. Not like you would have given me a chance," Ace panted, wiping blood from his mouth. Since the two started fighting, Strong Suit had the upper hand with her increased durability and physical prowess. However, Ace was more cunning than to aim the weak spots around her face, as well as the joints of her limbs to force her back. The teen sported a couple of injuries here and there, but there was also no worse for him to wear. Ace was missing one of the teeth, a sore cheek, hurting the chest, and sprain from his lower back were at the top of the list of his injuries. "Well, if you went quietly on the first ground go, we wouldn't be doing this. You're lucky I didn't even break your arm again," Strong Suit chuckled darkly. "Like I'll just stop fighting crime at the top of that, just because you girls say no. So at least I have standards to live by. Unlike the certain meat-headed jock who just thinks she deserves to be called a hero." The brunette then glared at her. "Says the moron who failed to catch any criminals for the past month. Ever since you left, we've been taking down crooks left and right, and all you did was hide in the shadows like a baby you always were." Ace then rolled his eyes. "Oh sure, stopping a bank robbery or high-speed chase is so hard," he retorted sarcastically. "Like I could do much when worthy a price on my head. No thanks to you guys, you told the whole town I'm a villain, and yet I bet you could take one look at the mirror and see one thing you're standing in your reflection." "Takes one to know, doesn't it?" Strong Suit huffed. Ace gritted his teeth. "I busted my back every day trying to track our arch enemies down, and you guys lose it over a little bad streak? Why? What did I do to deserve that?" Strong Suit grinned, folding her arms over her chest. "Well, since you asked nicely, here's what it started. Back during the times of our middle sour spot, me and the rest of our sisters had a meeting while you and Jack were patrolling. We wanted to figure out why we were having so much bad luck, thinking our enemies were just getting brainier or something. We also talked about how whatever or not you had something to do with it. But at first we just ignored it. So Lisa got this idea to go after a few bad guys to ourselves, quote unquote, to test to see if the answer was true." The brunette formed a grin. "We took down every bad guy we came across, probably even faster than you were running the show. So with that in mind, we came to the one you were talking about changing tactics." Her lips curled down with an accusing stare to locking Ace. "But you were too stupid and stubborn to even realize it. So we tried again and again to change your mind, but you just couldn't see it." Strong Suit's gaze then hardened into a glare. "Lily didn't either, which is why she's on the wrong side of all this. No thanks to your good-for-nothing brother." Ace opened his mouth to give a rebuttal, but Strong Suit wasn't finished yet. "So we decided to find the only way to get through it is that thick skull of yours is to make it see it our way." She then dropped her hands to her sides, gazing at the floor. "We didn't want to do it, Lincoln." She locked eyes with him. "But you gave us no choice." A pregnant pause that filled the void between them, only being briefly interrupted by the sounds of respective groups fighting each other every few seconds. "If that were the case, you girls could have sat down with me and talked things out." The boy glared at his sister. "But none of you really did. All I heard was nothing but name-calling and mocking me for my skills. The only person who ever cared to talk things over was Lily, and she understood my methods clear as day." Ace then balled his hands into fists. If you think beating me down just to get what you really want will change my mind on something important like our duty as heroes, here's a newsflash, Lynn. That's not giving advice. That's being a bully, and you know where I stand when it comes to people like them. Strong Suit stifled a laugh before it became a dark chuckle. Well then, she cracked her neck joints. I guess I'm done talking then. Within a second, she then charged at Ace with her signature ramming attack. Squinting his eyes, Ace waited until she was close enough to use her as a platform vault over the attack. Like he said before, Suit wasn't giving him a choice of avoiding conflict. He wanted to avoid fighting like someone like her, since she could take a ton of bricks before going down. But as they say, not all plans were foolproof. With that said, Strong Suit may be strong, but there were weaknesses about her that could explode. Slamming into the wall, Strong Suit was stunned for a few seconds, giving Ace the opportunity to deliver a few quick punches to the ribs. Suit grunted in pain before swinging at him with the black-handed first, but only boy leaned back enough just for it pure inches passed from his face. After it suited, instead of going for a kick, Ace grabbed her leg before spinning away from the wall, throwing her off balance long enough for her to go jab in the eye. However, Suit grabbed his hand and then the last moment, using it for leverage as she decked him across his jaw before digging a foot deep into his stomach. Ace felt whatever air he had left him before the athletic hero kicked him several feet away. Ace then stumbled backwards until he was nearly flat on his back. Hissing through his teeth, he fought through the pain. His eyes widened upon seeing the tomboy flying at him with her feet extended on only driving him into the floor. Rolling onto his left, the ground cracked like the dust had collected around the area of the impact. Hold still, like your lumps like a man, Strong Suit demanded, throwing another punch in his way.